The rain-soaked streets of New Haven's darker quarter seemed to writhe and twist like a living thing, as if the very pavement itself was alive and tormented. It was a night like any other, yet somehow worse, the shadows cast by the flickering street lamps like grasping fingers. In this forsaken place, the damned and the mad roamed free, their whispers and wails echoing through the mist-shrouded alleys like the cacophony of the damned. In a crumbling tenement on Oak Street, a lone figure huddled amidst the squalor, surrounded by stacks of mildewed tomes and scraps of forbidden knowledge. Professor Thaddeus Welles, erstwhile scholar of the occult, pored over yellowed pages, his eyes sunken, his mind aflame with a hunger that could never be sated. His quest for esoteric understanding had consumed him, body and soul, driving him to the brink of madness. As the rain drummed on, Welles' fingers trembled, his eyes widening as he stumbled upon a passage, penned in a language that should not exist. The words seemed to shift, writhing on the page like serpents, as if the very essence of madness had been distilled into ink. The air in the room grew thick, heavy with the scent of ozone and decay, and Welles felt the presence, the weight of unseen eyes upon him, boring into his very soul. The words on the page seemed to sear themselves into his brain, a fiery brand that could never be extinguished. Welles' mind reeled, his thoughts careening wildly as the room around him began to dissolve, the shadows deepening, lengthening, until they became dark, sinewy arms that wrapped about his waist, pulling him down, down into the abyss. He felt the sting of cold, damp air on his skin, and the sweet, loamy scent of decay wafted up, as if the earth itself had opened its mouth to claim him. The darkness coalesced, taking on a life of its own, until Welles stared into the face of his deepest fears. A visage that was not a face, yet was, its features shifting, flowing like molten wax, as it spoke in a voice that was both silence and cacophony. "Your time has come, Thaddeus Welles," it whispered, the words echoing through the chambers of his mind. "The threshold awaits, and beyond it, the hunger that has haunted your every waking moment. You have unlocked the door, and now you must step through, into the realm where madness reigns supreme." Welles' screams were drowned out by the pounding rain, as he felt himself being pulled, inexorably, toward the threshold, the abyssal void that yawned before him like an open mouth, waiting to consume him whole. The room around him dissolved, the walls melting like wax, as Welles felt himself being drawn through the threshold, leaving behind the fragile bounds of sanity. The darkness coalesced into a tunnel, a crimson-hued vortex that pulled him in, down, down, into the abyss. He stumbled, fell, and slid, his mind reeling, as the tunnel unwound before him, a twisted, pulsing serpent that devoured the light. The air grew thick with an unnameable horror, a presence that defied comprehension, as the tunnel began to writhe, twist, and contort like a living thing. Images, fragments of forgotten knowledge, and half-remembered terrors flickered before his eyes, taunting him with glimpses of the abyssal horrors that lurked beyond the veil of reality. Echoes of forgotten rituals and half-whispered incantations resonated through his mind, as the tunnel walls began to secrete a viscous, pulsing substance that seemed to pull him deeper, down, down, into the heart of madness. Suddenly, the tunnel lurched, and Welles found himself standing at the edge of a boundless, cyclopean city, its towers and spires a twisted, nightmarish parody of human architecture. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, and the sky above writhed, like a living thing, as if the very fabric of reality had been torn asunder. The city loomed before him, a monolithic horror, its structures twisted, impossible, and yet, somehow, alive. Welles' mind reeled as he stumbled through the streets, his footsteps echoing off walls that seemed to absorb sound, leaving only an oppressive silence. Everywhere he saw eyes. Eyes that watched, eyes that burned, eyes that blasphemed the very concept of sanity. They glowed, like embers, in the darkness, as if the city itself was a living, sentient entity, and Welles was but a temporary, insignificant guest. A presence, ancient, malevolent, and patient, stirred, its attention fixed on the scholar. The air vibrated with an unspoken language, as if the city's very essence was alive and speaking to him in a tongue that only the damned could understand. Welles stumbled, his feet moving in rhythm with the city's twisted heartbeat, as he was drawn toward a monolithic, cyclopean gate, adorned with glyphs that seemed to shift, like living, serpentine creatures. The gate, a massive, twisted maw, yawned open, revealing a realm of unspeakable horrors, where the laws of reality were but a distant memory. And in that moment, Welles knew he was doomed, trapped in a realm where madness was the only currency and terror the only coin. The city, the abyss, and the horrors that lurked within had claimed him body and soul. As he crossed the threshold, the gate slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing through the twisted, nightmarish landscape like a death knell. Welles stumbled, his mind shattered, as he gazed upon the horror that lay before him. In the distance, an endless, screaming multitude thronged, their faces twisted in agony, as they marched toward a great, cyclopean ziggurat, its peak lost in the swirling, madness-inducing clouds. The air was heavy with the stench of burning, and the very ground seemed to writhe, as if the earth itself was alive and tormented. At the ziggurat's base, a colossal, twisted statue loomed, its features a blasphemy, a mockery of human form. Eyes like two blazing green suns burned with an otherworldly intensity, as the statue's maw, a twisted, scream-like curve, seemed to whisper secrets to the damned, who marched, unending, toward the abyss. Welles, his mind shattered, stumbled toward the statue, his feet moving, as if drawn by some eldritch power. The eyes, burning with an otherworldly intensity, seemed to fix upon him, and in their depths, he saw the reflection of his own damned soul. As he reached the statue's base, the eyes flared, bathing him in an emerald, hellish light, and Welles knew that he was but a mere, insignificant morsel in the abyssal feast of the damned. The city, the abyss, and the horrors that lurked within had claimed him, and he was forever lost in the realm of the mad. The green, hellish light enveloped him, and Welles felt his sanity, his very essence, being consumed by the abyss. The statue's eyes burned brighter, as if fueled by his terror, and the scholar's mind was flooded with visions of unfathomable horrors, lurking just beyond the veil of reality. He saw the universe as a twisted, eldritch tapestry, woven from threads of madness and despair, and he knew that he was but a single, insignificant strand, about to be snapped by the weight of the abyss. The statue's maw, that scream-like curve, seemed to whisper secrets in his mind, revealing the terrible truth, that the fabric of reality was but a fragile, gossamer thread, and that the abyss lurked, patiently waiting to unravel the cosmos and devour all that existed. Welles' screams were drowned out by the cacophony of the damned, as the green light intensified, and his mind, his soul, and his very being were consumed by the abyss. In that instant, he knew that he was no more, and that the madness that had driven him had finally and irrevocably claimed him. The last, flickering ember of his sanity was extinguished, and Thaddeus Welles, the scholar, the seeker of forbidden knowledge, was no more. In his place stood a twisted, soulless husk, forever trapped in the abyssal realm of the mad.